He can't dance with you, Serena, someone said. His wife is sitting right there. Serena Vale laughed softly beside the marble staircase, her fingers wrapped around my husband's arm. Sitting is all she does now. The ballroom went quiet for half a second, then the quiet changed not into outrage, not into defense, into that uncomfortable, hungry silence people make when they are embarrassed for you, but still curious enough to watch. My husband, Ethan Pierce, did not pull his arm away. He did not tell her to stop. He only looked down at me in my wheelchair, his face tight with the irritation he always wore when my body became inconvenient in public. Natalie, he said under his breath, don't make a scene. I looked at him, then at Serena. She was beautiful in a pale silver dress, the kind of dress that looked innocent until she moved under the lights. Her diamonds matched the bracelet Ethan had once promised to give me for our 3rd anniversary, then claimed the jeweler had lost the order. Now I knew where that order had gone. Serena lifted her champagne glass and smiled at me as if we were old friends sharing a private joke. Honestly, she said, a little louder this time, Ethan deserves one normal night. He has been trapped playing nurse for a year. Let him enjoy himself. A few people glanced at Ethan with sympathy. That was the part that finally made something inside me go cold. Not her insult, not the word crippled, which she had already used twice near the donor's table. When she thought I was too far away to hear, it was the sympathy. They pitied him, the man who had missed every surgery follow-up, the man who had sent his assistant to sign my discharge papers, the man who had slept in hotels because, as his mother put it, a young husband should not be forced to live like a widower. And now, under chandeliers paid for by a foundation that had used my family's money as its seed capital, they were all looking at him like he was the victim. I rested my hand on the wheel of my chair. My phone was already recording inside the small beaded clutch on my lap. It had been recording since Serena leaned down 20 minutes earlier and whispered, "You know he only keeps you around because divorcing a disabled woman would look ugly." She had been right about one thing: it would look ugly, just not for me. Ethan bent down slightly, careful not to wrinkle his tuxedo. Go home, Natalie. You look tired. I'm not tired, I said, his eyes sharpened. This is not the place. For what? For your mood. My mood, that was what he called pain when he caused it. My mood, my sensitivity, my inability to move on, my jealousy, my bitterness. Serena sighed as if she were being generous by tolerating me. Natalie, please don't be dramatic. Everyone knows you've had a hard year. But punishing Ethan forever won't make you walk again. The words floated across the ballroom, clear, cruel, perfect. I looked past her and saw members of the Pierce Foundation board standing near the champagne tower. I saw Ethan's mother, Marjorie Pierce, stiff in emerald satin, watching with her lips pressed thin. I saw my physical therapist, Dr. Melanie Hart, near the side entrance, exactly where she had promised to be if I needed her, and I saw the big screen behind the podium, still glowing with the foundation's slogan, restoring dignity, restoring lives. I almost laughed. Instead, I unlocked the brake on my wheelchair. Ethan frowned. Natalie, I placed both hands on the armrests. His face changed only a little at first, confusion, then recognition, then fear. Serena's smile faltered. I pushed myself up. My knees shook, because healing was not magic and strength was not a performance trick. Pain burned down my lower back and into my left hip. My right ankle trembled inside the black brace hidden beneath my gown, but I stood. One breath, two. The ballroom froze. A champagne glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered on the marble floor. Ethan stared at me as if I had risen from a coffin. Serena's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I reached into my clutch, stopped the recording, and held my phone up between us. You're right, I said to Serena. Everyone should know what kind of man Ethan really is. Ethan's eyes darted to the phone. Natalie, he said, softer now. Don't. That one word told me everything. He did not ask if I was hurt. He did not ask how long I had been able to stand. He did not ask what it cost me to do it. He only cared about what I had captured. I took one step. It was small, ugly, unsteady, but it was mine. The crowd moved back as if my body had become a loaded weapon. Serena whispered, "You lied." I turned to her. No, I recovered. Ethan reached for my arm. I stepped away before he touched me. That hurt worse than standing, not emotionally, physically. My muscles screamed, and a sharp bolt of pain cut through my spine. For one dangerous second, my balance dipped. Then Dr. Hart was there beside me, close but not holding me up. I had asked her not to catch me. Unless I fell. I wanted everyone to see the truth. Not that I was perfectly healed, that I was done being carried by people who had used my injury as a cage. Ethan looked at Dr. Hart. What is this? She did not flinch. Your wife's progress. The one you would have known about if you had attended a single appointment. Someone gasped. Marjorie moved first. She swept toward us with the fury of a woman who understood reputation faster than compassion. Natalie, she said tightly, sit down before you embarrass yourself. I looked at her. For a year. She had called my wheelchair the chair like it was dirty furniture. For a year. She had told me not to come downstairs when Ethan hosted guests because people do not know where to look. For a year. She had accepted monthly transfers from the trust my father left me. Then called me expensive. I smiled at her. No, the word was small. It landed hard. Ethan's voice dropped. You have no idea what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. I reached down slowly and pulled the diamond ring from my finger. Ethan's grandmother's ring. The Pierce family ring. The ring Marjorie had once reminded me did not really belong to me, because heirlooms only belong to the women who preserved the family name. I placed it in Ethan's palm. His fingers closed around it automatically. I'm giving back what was never really mine, I said, and I'm taking back everything that is. His face drained. He understood that part. Money had always translated faster than pain in the Pierce family. Serena tried to recover. This is ridiculous. Ethan, tell her to stop. I looked at him. Go ahead. He said nothing because in front of 200 donors, a dozen cameras, and the board of his own foundation, he no longer knew which version of himself to perform. The devoted husband, the exhausted caretaker, the innocent man torn between a bitter wife and a misunderstood old friend. All those costumes required me to stay seated. I turned toward the exit. Every step was slow. Every step hurt. Every step made the room smaller behind me. People parted. Nobody laughed now at the doorway. I stopped and looked back. By tomorrow morning, I said, the foundation's account will no longer receive transfers from the Bellamy Trust. Neither will your mother's household account. Neither will the private security contract. Neither will the apartment Serena uses on West End Avenue. Serena went white. Ethan's voice cracked. Natalie. I looked at him one last time. For a year, you all thought I couldn't stand. I tightened my fingers around the handle of my cane, folded discreetly beside the chair. You should have worried about what I could still see. Then I walked out of the ballroom. Behind me, the applause video on the foundation screen began to loop again. Ethan appeared on it, smiling beside my wheelchair last winter, telling the world that love meant sacrifice. I did not watch it. In the lobby, my knees nearly gave out. Dr. Hart helped me sit on a bench near the elevators. You did it, she said quietly. I closed my eyes. My body was shaking so badly that my teeth almost clicked. I did one part. She crouched in front of me. Natalie, you need to rest. I will, tonight, after I send one email. Her mouth tightened. She knew better than to argue. I opened my phone. The recording was there. So were the photos of Serena's bracelet, the bank transfers, the apartment lease, the emails from Ethan's assistant asking my accountant to keep Mrs. Pierce unaware of unnecessary financial stress. And beneath all of that, in a locked folder labeled accident, was the file I had not been ready to open in months, a damaged audio clip recovered from Ethan's car system. Only 11 seconds had been clear enough to hear Ethan's voice, Serena's name, the screech of tires, and my own scream. I had stood tonight. Tomorrow, I would make them fall. I did not go home to the townhouse Ethan and I had bought together. I went to the suite my attorney had reserved under my maiden name, Bellamy. Not Pierce. The name looked strange on the check-in screen, like an old coat taken from the back of a closet. But when the front desk manager handed me the keycard and said, "Welcome, Ms. Bellamy," something inside my ribs loosened, not healed, just loosened. Dr. Hart walked beside me to the elevator, carrying my folded wheelchair with one hand and my overnight bag with the other. "I can stay for an hour," she said. "You have patients in the morning. You are my patient. I am also stubborn. That has been medically documented." I laughed, and the sound startled me. It had been so long since laughter came out without first asking permission. The suite was quiet and warm. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked over the city. Yellow taxis slipped through the rain below. The room smelled of clean linen and lemon polish. Not Ethan's cedar cologne or Marjorie's roses. I made it 5 steps inside before my left leg buckled. Dr. Hart caught my elbow, not my waist. She remembered. I lowered myself carefully onto the couch, breathing through the pain until the ceiling stopped tilting. "You pushed too hard," she said. "I needed them to see." "They did, not enough," She sat across from me. What happened tonight will travel fast. Are you ready for that? I looked at my phone on the coffee table. It had already begun vibrating every few seconds. Ethan, Marjorie, Ethan again, unknown number, Serena, then a message from Ethan. Where are you? Another, we need to talk before this becomes uglier then. You humiliated me. I stared at that one longer than I should have. You okay? Dr. Hart asked. I'm trying to decide if I'm still capable of being surprised. By him, by myself. I thought seeing those words would hurt, and it does. I put the phone face down, but it doesn't change anything. Dr. Hart studied me with the calm patience that had carried me through months of physical therapy. She had seen me cry into folded towels when my legs refused to obey me. She had seen me rage when insurance forms called my progress unlikely. She had seen me freeze every time Ethan cancelled another session because something came up. She had never once told me to be grateful. That was why I trusted her. I'll call your nurse for tomorrow, she said. You need evaluation after that stunt. It was not a stunt. Her eyes softened. No, it was a statement. Your spine still does not care about symbolism. Fair, she stood, and Natalie, do not answer him tonight. I won't. I meant it when I said it. Then the phone rang again, and Ethan's name lit the screen like an old reflex. I let it ring, the room filled with the sound. Once, twice, 3 times. It stopped immediately. A voicemail appeared. I did not play it. Instead, I opened my email and sent the message I had drafted 2 days earlier to my accountant, my attorney, and the trustee managing the Bellamy Trust. Subject: immediate suspension of voluntary transfers, effective immediately. Suspend all discretionary transfers to Pierce Foundation auxiliary accounts, Pierce family household accounts, security retainers related to Ethan Pierce, and any recurring payments linked to the West End Avenue lease under SV or related entities. I read it twice, then I pressed send. No lightning struck, no one burst through the door. The world did not collapse because I stopped funding the people who had taught me that love meant bleeding quietly. My phone rang again. This time, I turned it off. Dr. Hart smiled faintly. Good. After she left, the silence became heavier. I changed slowly into soft pajamas, using the cane for balance. Every movement reminded me that standing in the ballroom had not been a miracle. It had been months of sweat, pain, injections, nerve work, braces, and learning how to fall without breaking something else. The mirror across from the closet caught my reflection. For a second, I saw what they must have seen tonight: a thin woman with tired eyes, dark hair pinned too tightly, a black silk gown hanging off shoulders that had carried too much, a leg brace, a cane, no wedding ring, not whole, not broken either. I sat at the desk and finally opened the voicemail. Ethan's voice filled the room. Natalie, call me back. This is insane. Whatever you think you heard tonight. Serena was upset. She didn't mean it like that. You walking out like that makes both of us look unstable. My mother is furious. The board is asking questions. You need to come home, and we'll figure out how to explain this. There was a pause, then his voice lowered. And do not touch the accounts. You have no idea how much damage you could cause. I saved the voicemail, not because I needed another reason, because my attorney liked patterns. The next message was from Marjorie. Her voice was sharp enough to cut paper. Natalie, this family has tolerated a great deal because of your condition, but tonight you behaved disgracefully. If you had recovered, you should have told your husband instead of staging some vulgar public performance. Do not mistake pity for power. Ethan married you when you were healthy. He stayed when you became limited. Show some gratitude. I saved that too. Then I opened Serena's message. It was not voicemail, it was text. You think standing up changes what you are. He still comes to me when he wants to feel alive. For a long time, I looked at that sentence, then I took a screenshot. My hands were steady. That was new. At 2 in the morning, I woke from a dream of twisting metal. My body remembered before my mind did. Rain on glass, Ethan's hand on the wheel, his phone glowing in the cup holder, Serena's name on the screen, me telling him to slow down, his jaw clenched. She's spiraling again. He had said, if I don't go, she'll do something stupid. She is 32, Ethan. She needs me. So do I. He had not answered. The car had taken the curve too fast. The guardrail had appeared. Then sound became impact. For months after the accident, Ethan told everyone I had been anxious that night. He said I had grabbed his arm during an argument. He said the crash had been tragic, unavoidable, complicated. I had been too injured and medicated to fight him at first, then too ashamed, then too afraid of what the truth would cost. But the body remembers, even when the world teaches you to doubt yourself, the body remembers the hand that did not reach for you at 7 in the morning. My attorney, Rachel Kim, arrived with black coffee and a tablet. Rachel was 5 feet tall, always perfectly dressed, and had the terrifying stillness of a woman who charged by the hour and never wasted one. She looked at my cane leaning against the couch. So, she said, the gala was eventful. You saw the video, 3 versions, one from a donor, one from a caterer, one already on a gossip account with 200,000 views. I exhaled. That fast. Public cruelty travels well. She sat across from me and opened her tablet. Before we do anything, I need to confirm. Are you ready to file? Yes. Legal separation first. Divorce petition after we secure financial documents. Injunction if Ethan tries to access your trust-related accounts. Defamation strategy ready if they claim you faked your disability. Medical records will support the truth. You were injured, treated, and recovering privately. I don't want it to look like I tricked anyone. Rachel looked at me over her glasses. You did not owe your abusers progress reports. The word abusers made my stomach tighten, not because it was wrong, because it fit too well. She slid the tablet toward me. Now. About the accident, I stared at the locked folder on the screen. Do we have enough? We have enough to start asking dangerous questions. The recovered audio is partial, but it contradicts Ethan's public version. The phone records show he received multiple calls from Serena before the crash. The emergency report lists you as the passenger, not the driver, despite the story his mother has repeated. And there is something else. Rachel tapped the screen. A hospital authorization form appeared. I recognized the date. 3 days after the accident. My signature was at the bottom, only it was not my signature. What is this? I asked. Consent for Ethan Pierce to manage certain medical and insurance communications on your behalf. I never signed that. I know. My mouth went dry. Rachel continued. Calm and precise. The signature is inconsistent with your verified records. Also, according to your medical chart, you were on heavy pain medication that day. You could not have legally consented. Without proper evaluation, I remembered waking in the hospital to Ethan sitting beside my bed, looking exhausted and heroic. He had touched my hair and told me not to worry about anything. I'm handling it, he had said, and I, stupid with pain and love, had believed handling meant protecting. What did that form let him do? I asked. Receive updates, speak with insurance, control communications. It may also explain why some rehab recommendations never reached your trustee. I looked toward the window. The city was bright now. Morning had arrived without asking whether I was ready. Rachel's voice softened. Natalie, he trapped me in the version of my body that benefited him. We are going to prove what we can prove. And what about what we can't? Then we use what they give us next. As if summoned, my phone lit up. Ethan this time. He did not call, he texted, come home by noon. My mother wants a family meeting. Serena will be there too. We can fix this privately if you behave reasonably. I laughed once. Rachel raised an eyebrow. That him? I handed her the phone. She read it and smiled without warmth. Good, she said. A family meeting. You think I should go? I think you should go nowhere alone. I wasn't planning to. At noon, I returned to the townhouse in a black car Rachel arranged, wearing flat shoes, a charcoal coat, and the smallest knee brace I could manage. The wheelchair came with me not because I needed it every minute, because I refused to be ashamed of needing it at all. Ethan opened the door before I knocked. He looked tired. Good. His gaze dropped to my legs, then to the chair folded behind me, then back to my face. You should have told me, he said. I stepped past him into the house. You should have asked. In the living room, Marjorie sat like a judge on our cream sofa. Serena stood by the fireplace wearing one of Ethan's white shirts under a cashmere coat, a shirt I recognized. Mine had once hung beside it. My stomach turned, then settled. Marjorie's eyes narrowed at Rachel behind me. Why is there a lawyer in my son's house? Rachel smiled. Because your daughter-in-law invited me. Serena crossed her arms. This is ridiculous. No, I said, taking the seat across from them. This is overdue. Ethan shut the door slowly. The room smelled of roses. I had always hated those roses. Marjorie leaned forward. You will not destroy this family because your pride was hurt. I placed my phone on the coffee table, then I placed the forged authorization form beside it. Ethan went still. I watched his face. There it was, not confusion, recognition. I felt the last tender part of me close its eyes. What is that? Marjorie demanded. I looked at my husband. Tell her, I said. He swallowed. Serena's gaze flicked toward him, and for the first time in a year, Ethan Pierce had no story ready. Ethan reached for the paper. Rachel moved it out of his reach with 2 fingers. Originals stay with counsel, she said pleasantly. Marjorie looked from Rachel to Ethan. What is going on? It's a misunderstanding, Ethan said. His voice had recovered some of its polish, but not enough. I had lived beside him for 5 years. I knew every version of his voice. This one was the voice he used when a donor asked about missing numbers before he found a way to blame accounting. A misunderstanding, I asked. He looked at me. You were in pain. There were forms everywhere. You asked me to take care of things. I asked you to help me drink water, Natalie. I asked you where my father's watch was because I could not remember if it had been in the car. I asked you if my legs were still there. My voice stayed even. I did not ask you to sign my name. Marjorie's face changed, but not toward horror, toward calculation. What did the form authorize? She asked. Rachel answered before Ethan could. Medical communication access, insurance management, and administrative handling of rehabilitation recommendations. We are still reviewing the scope. Marjorie's mouth tightened. That sounds like something a husband would naturally do. A husband does not forge consent from a sedated patient, Rachel said. Serena scoffed. Oh, please. You're acting like he locked her in a basement. She lived in a beautiful house with private care. I turned to her. Paid for by me. Her eyes flashed. Good. She had gotten too comfortable thinking I was too polite to say the ugly things out loud. Ethan stepped toward the coffee table. This is not productive. It is for me. You brought a lawyer into our home. I brought a witness into a room where everyone has practiced lying. Marjorie stood. Enough. The command in her voice used to work on me. It had been trained into the walls of this house. Staff lowered their eyes when she entered. Ethan straightened his shoulders. Even Serena, who enjoyed pushing boundaries, rarely crossed Marjorie directly. I stayed seated. Marjorie's eyes narrowed. You are angry. Fine, we understand. But you will not threaten legal action over paperwork signed during a medical crisis. Families handle these things privately. Families also do not hide a man's mistress in an apartment funded through his wife's trust. The room went silent. Serena's face paled, then flushed. Excuse me. I opened my bag and took out the lease summary Rachel had obtained. West End Avenue, Unit 19B. The payments routed through a consulting retainer attached to the Pierce Foundation's Accessibility Outreach account, a program that was supposed to fund home modifications for disabled patients. My hand did not shake when I placed the page beside the forged form. Do you prefer mistress or consultant? I asked. Serena's lips parted. Ethan said, that apartment is temporary. I looked at him. For what? Adultery with a view. His jaw tightened. Do not cheapen this. For 1 second, I almost lost my breath. Do not cheapen this. As if his betrayal were a sacred thing I had insulted by naming it. Serena lifted her chin. Ethan and I have history. You know that? Yes, I said. You were his college girlfriend. You left him for a venture capitalist. You came back when the venture capitalist's fund collapsed. I know. Her eyes went sharp. You don't know anything about us. I know he called you from the car the night we crashed. Ethan's face went blank. That was more satisfying than shouting. Marjorie's head snapped toward him. Ethan. He did not look at her. He looked at me. What did you say? I leaned back. My hip screamed from the movement. I let the pain sharpen me. I said I know you were talking to Serena that night. I know. You were speeding because she kept calling. I know I told you to slow down. His voice became very quiet. Be careful. Rachel smiled. Mr. Pierce, I would advise you to be careful. Serena took 1 step back from the fireplace. This is insane. He told me you grabbed the wheel. I stared at her for months. I had wondered whether she knew, whether she had let Ethan blame me because the truth did not serve her. Her confusion looked real, not innocent. Just real. That mattered. It meant Ethan had lied to her too. My husband had built his life out of different lies, each tailored to the person most likely to believe it. To his mother, I was unstable. To Serena, I was jealous. To donors, I was tragic. To me, he was overwhelmed. Marjorie sat down slowly. Ethan, what is she talking about? His voice hardened. A damaged audio file does not prove anything. Rachel's eyes flickered with interest. I smiled faintly. He had just confirmed there was a file. He realized it half a second later. Rachel picked up her pen and wrote something in her notebook. Serena looked at Ethan. What audio file? Nothing. He snapped. She flinched. That flinch told me something too. Their romance was not a love story. It was a hierarchy. Ethan gave attention. protection, money, and borrowed importance, Serena gave worship. The moment she asked for truth, he turned on her. I stood carefully, not fully, not dramatically, just enough to make Ethan tense again. I came here for 3 things, I said, my passport, my father's watch, and the medical binder you told me was lost. Ethan's eyes shifted toward the hallway. There, I had wondered where he kept it. Rachel noticed too. Marjorie recovered her voice. You are not taking documents from this house without review. It's my medical history. It involves my son. Then he should have behaved better inside it. I moved toward the stairs. Ethan blocked me, not violently, not enough for a dramatic scene, just with his body, tall and familiar and suddenly strange. You are not going upstairs, he said. I looked at him, and for one awful second I remembered loving that face. I remembered him on our wedding morning, nervous and laughing as he tried to fix his crooked tie. I remembered him holding my hand when my father died. I remembered the way he used to read in bed with one hand resting on my ankle, like he needed proof I was there. Then I remembered his hand reaching for Serena's phone call instead of the brake. Move, I said. He did not. Rachel spoke behind me. Mr. Pierce, if you prevent Ms. Bellamy from retrieving her personal documents, I will call the police and request civil standby. Given the forged authorization form on the table, I recommend you think carefully. His throat moved. Marjorie said, Ethan, step aside. He looked furious. He stepped aside. Every stare was a negotiation between pride and pain. I did not let him help me. At the top, the hallway smelled like dust and old perfume. I had not climbed these stairs in 10 months. The elevator Ethan promised to install had never appeared, though the invoice had been paid from my trust. I added that to the list in my head. Our bedroom door was half open. Inside, the room looked untouched and violated at the same time. My books were still on the nightstand. My framed photo with my father still sat on the dresser, but Serena's hair tie lay near the lamp. Small things can be more obscene than naked bodies. I opened Ethan's closet first. The safe was behind his winter coats. My birthday was still the code. That hurt in a stupid way. Inside were my passport, my father's watch, and a blue medical binder with my name on the spine. Also inside was a small velvet box. I opened it. The diamond bracelet Serena had worn last night glittered up at me from its receipt, paid by Pierce Foundation Outreach. I took a photo, then I took the receipt downstairs. Voices were rising. Serena's voice cut through the house. You told me she was never going to recover. I froze. Ethan said something too low to hear. Serena snapped. No. You said the doctors were being kind. You said she would always need you. I held the railing. There are moments when pain becomes so large it stops hurting and turns into space, empty, cold, endless. He had told her I would never recover, not because he believed it, because he wanted her to stay. I continued down. When I entered the living room, Ethan stopped talking. Serena looked at me with a face full of anger and something almost like fear. I placed the blue binder in my bag, then I held up the bracelet receipt. Marjorie closed her eyes. Ethan whispered, Natalie. I looked at all 3 of them. I'll see you in court. Serena laughed, brittle and panicked. Court? For what? A bracelet? No, I said, for the money, the fraud, the forged medical form, the apartment, the lies about the accident. I looked at Ethan. And if the rest of the audio can be recovered, maybe more. His face changed. There it was again. Fear, not regret. Not yet. Fear came first with men like Ethan because regret required seeing me as a person. I walked to the door. This time, he did not stop me outside. Rachel helped me into the car. You got the binder? She asked. Yes. Anything else? I handed her the receipt. Her eyebrows rose. Well, she said, Serena has expensive taste. I leaned my head back against the seat. From the townhouse window, I saw Ethan watching me through the curtain. For a year, he had thought the chair made me small. He had forgotten something simple. A cage teaches you the shape of every lock. The medical binder was worse than I expected. Not because it contained something shocking, because it contained absence, missing referrals, unanswered emails, printed therapy recommendations that had never reached me. Notes from specialists I had never met because appointments had been cancelled and rescheduled until the clinic stopped calling. Rachel spread the documents across the conference table in her office, arranging them by date while I sat with a heating pad against my lower back. Her assistant, Priya, scanned each page. Dr. Hart joined by video call during her lunch break. Her face tightened as Rachel read the timeline aloud. Initial spinal trauma after crash, surgery, inpatient rehab recommended for minimum 8 weeks, Family requested home discharge after 3, my family. I asked, Rachel checked the note. Husband requested, mother-in-law present. I remembered Marjorie in the hospital room, her pearls glowing against a black coat. She would heal better in familiar surroundings, she had told the doctor. Hospitals depress her. At the time, I had thought she was advocating for me. I had been grateful. The memory made me nauseous, Rachel continued. Outpatient neurological rehab recommended. Appointment scheduled. Cancelled by spouse's office. Rescheduled. Cancelled again. Insurance queries routed through Ethan's authorization. Dr. Hart's expression went flat. That explains the delay. I looked at her. You always asked why I started so late, you told me. Ethan said the first rehab center had no openings. He did. Rachel placed another page in front of me. An email from Ethan's assistant to a rehabilitation clinic. Mr. Pierce believes Mrs. Pierce is emotionally fragile and may not benefit from aggressive treatment at this stage. Please direct future communications through our office. I read it 3 times. Emotionally fragile, aggressive treatment, future communications through our office. Each phrase was a soft glove over a closed fist. He stole time, I said. No one spoke. He didn't just cheat. He didn't just lie. He stole time from my body. Dr. Hart's voice was gentle. You regained function despite that delay. Do not make it sound inspirational. I'm not. Her eyes held mine through the screen. I'm saying the delay harmed you. And you still fought your way back. Both are true. I looked down at the email again. Both are true. For a long time, I had thought healing required choosing one story. Either I was strong, or I was damaged. Either I was recovering, or I had been harmed. Either I was moving forward, or the past mattered. Now I understood. The truth did not cancel itself out. Rachel tapped the folder. We can use this. Medical interference, potential forgery, financial misuse, defamation if they continue the fake disability narrative. But we need to be strategic. What do you need from me? Permission to request full records from every clinic listed here. Permission to subpoena communication if they refuse. And we need your statement about the accident. My stomach tightened. The accident lived inside me like a dark room I never entered with the lights on. Rachel saw my face. Not today if you can't. Today, I said, so I told them not all of it, not at first. I began with facts because facts had edges I could hold. Date, time, rain, restaurant, argument in the car. Serena had called 6 times during dinner. Ethan had silenced the phone the first 2 times, then checked it under the table. By dessert, he was angry with me for noticing. She's in crisis, he had said. She's always in crisis when you're with me. I said. He had accused me of being cruel in the car. The phone rang again. Serena's name lit the screen. He answered through the speakers. Her voice was slurred, crying, dramatic. She said she could not breathe. She said nobody loved her. She said if Ethan really cared, he would come. I told him to pull over if he needed to talk. He drove faster. I told him he was scaring me. He said, don't start. The road curved near the river. His eyes flicked to the phone screen when Serena sobbed his name. The car drifted. I shouted. He jerked the wheel. Impact. Then nothing clean enough to describe. By the time I finished, my hands had cramped around the paper cup of water Priya gave me. Rachel's voice was quiet. Did you touch the wheel? No. Did you distract him physically? No. Did you ask him to slow down? Yes. Did he ever admit that to anyone? I thought of Ethan in the hospital, whispering. We both said things. It was a bad night. Don't torture yourself trying to remember. I shook my head. No. Rachel wrote something down. Then we build around contradiction. Phone records, car data, audio recovery, emergency report, your medical timeline, his public statements, Serena's messages. At the mention of Serena, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Then another message. A photo appeared. Serena and Ethan in a hotel lobby. Time-stamped 2 weeks after my accident. Ethan's arm around her shoulders. Her caption, he was never yours after the crash. Below it, keep digging. Natalie, you won't like what you find. Priya inhaled sharply when I showed Rachel. Rachel smiled. It was not a kind smile. People really do commit defamation for free. I stared at the photo. 2 weeks after the accident, I had been in a hospital bed learning how to sit up without vomiting from pain. Ethan had told me he was sleeping at his office because the hospital chair hurt his back. He had gone to Serena. The image did not break me. That surprised me. It clarified things. Grief is fog when you still hope there was another explanation. Proof burns fog away. Send it to me, Rachel said. I did. By late afternoon, The legal notices were ready, one to Ethan, one to the Pierce Foundation, one to Marjorie regarding household transfers, one to the management company for the West End apartment, one to Serena Vale warning preservation of evidence and potential claims. Rachel read each aloud. The language was clean and merciless. It did not call anyone cruel. It did not say my heart had been rearranged by betrayal. It simply listed dates, documents, funds, and consequences. That was the first thing I learned about legal language. It did not need to scream because it knew where to press. At 5, Rachel's receptionist knocked. Ms. Bellamy, there's someone downstairs asking to see you. Rachel looked up. Name, Ethan Pierce. My body reacted before my mind did, a tightening at my throat, a flash of fear, a stupid pull toward the man I had loved. Rachel saw all of it and waited. I hated that she waited because choice is harder when no one takes it from you. Is he alone? I asked. The receptionist checked her tablet. No, his mother is with him. Of course she was. Ethan rarely fought without a shield, Rachel said. You don't have to see him. I know. Do you want to? I looked at the medical binder, at the forged form, at the photo Serena had sent. Want was the wrong word. Need was closer. There are doors you cannot close until you look through them one final time. I'll see him in the small conference room, I said. Record it. Rachel nodded. Ethan looked wrong under fluorescent office lights. He belonged in candlelit fundraisers, oak boardrooms, expensive restaurants where servers knew his wine preference. Here, in a glass-walled conference room with a box of tissues on the table and a camera blinking in the corner, he looked stripped of scenery. Marjorie sat beside him, spine straight, handbag on lap. She did not greet me. Ethan stood when I entered. His eyes dropped again to my cane. How long? He asked. No apology, no hello. How long had I been recovering without his permission? Long enough, I said. Marjorie's mouth tightened. This spectacle has gone far enough. Rachel sat beside me. Mrs. Pierce, you are here voluntarily. If you want to discuss settlement, discuss settlement. If you want to insult my client, leave. Marjorie looked as if no one had spoken to her that way in decades. Ethan placed both hands on the table. Natalie, I understand you're angry. I should have handled some things differently. Some things. His face tightened. I was under pressure too. I nodded. From your mistress. Marjorie snapped. Serena is not relevant. She was relevant enough to have an apartment. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. I ended that. I almost smiled. When? He did not answer. Before or after she wore the bracelet purchased with foundation money. Marjorie turned to him. This time, Ethan had no shield. He lowered his voice. I can repay the account. It is not only about repayment, it can be handled quietly. There it is. What? The real reason you came. I leaned forward. Not because you hurt me, not because you delayed my care, not because you lied about the accident, because you want quiet. His face twisted. You think I didn't suffer? I watched my wife become someone else. No, I said. You watched me become inconvenient. He flinched. Good. Marjorie stood. We are leaving. Rachel slid an envelope across the table. Then take this. Notice of document preservation. Destroy nothing. Delete nothing. Instruct Serena Vale to do the same. Ethan looked at the envelope like it might bite. Natalie, he said, if you do this, there is no going back. I looked at his hand. No wedding ring. He had stopped wearing it months ago, claiming his fingers swelled during workouts. Ethan, I said, I stood up in front of 200 people last night. I think you should understand by now that going back is not my goal. For the first time, something like panic moved across his face. Not fear of scandal, fear of losing access to the version of me that always waited. Marjorie was already at the door. Ethan followed slowly. Just before he left, he turned. You were happier before you started listening to lawyers and doctors. I held his gaze. No, I said. I was easier. He had no answer. After they left, Rachel shut the door and let out a breath. That, she said, was useful. I looked at the camera in the corner. Did we get it? All of it. My phone buzzed again. This time the message was from an unknown email address. No subject, one attachment, a video file. The message said, I worked valet the night of your accident. I kept this because his mother paid my manager to delete the security copy. My fingers went cold. Rachel moved beside me on the frozen thumbnail. Ethan's car sat outside the restaurant entrance. Rain blurred the lights. Ethan was behind the wheel. Serena's name glowed on the dashboard screen and my hand was nowhere near the steering wheel. I watched the valet video once, then I ran to the bathroom and threw up. Not because the footage showed the crash. It didn't. The restaurant camera only captured the car pulling away into the rain. Ethan's profile lit by the dashboard. My face turned toward him in distress, but the audio was clear enough, clearer than the damaged file recovered from the car. Serena's voice came through the speakers. Ethan, if you don't come now, don't bother coming to my funeral. My own voice followed, tight with fear. Pull over, Ethan. Pull over if you're going to talk to her. His answer was sharp. Stop making everything about you. Then the car moved out of frame. 10 seconds later, somewhere beyond the camera's reach, metal screamed. I stayed on the bathroom floor with my back against the wall, shaking so hard I could not stand. Rachel sat outside the door. She did not tell me to breathe. People always tell you to breathe when they do not know what else to offer. Rachel knew better. She slid a glass of water through the cracked door and waited. After a while, I said, I knew, I know, I remembered it. I told myself maybe memory changed it because pain does that, trauma does that. Everyone kept saying I was confused. Rachel's voice stayed steady. You were not confused. I pressed my palms to my eyes. Those 4 words did something no medical report had done. You were not confused. For a year, Ethan had lived in the space between my memory and everyone else's certainty. He had widened that space until I could barely trust my own mind. Now the space collapsed. I was standing in the wreckage of it when I came out. Rachel had already contacted the sender through secure email. His name was Luis Ortega. He had been working valet at the restaurant the night of the crash. He says the restaurant's manager received a call the next morning from Marjorie's assistant. Rachel said, they were told the Pierce family wanted privacy because you were unstable and the media might twist things. The manager deleted the saved clip from the main server, but Luis had already exported a copy because he thought it might be needed for insurance. Why send it now? He saw the gala video. I closed my eyes. The public humiliation Serena intended as my final reduction had become a signal flare. People who had stayed silent were beginning to reconsider what silence protected. What can we do with it? I asked. Several things. First, preserve it properly. Second, use it in the divorce and civil claims. Third, depending on the full accident reconstruction, it may support negligence. The statute issues need review, but the concealment matters. Can we release it? Rachel looked at me carefully. We can, but not impulsively. I'm not impulsive. You stood up in a ballroom last night. I rehearsed that for 3 weeks. Fair point. She closed the laptop. Natalie, once that video is public, people will consume your worst night like entertainment. Some will support you, some will question you. Some will say you are weaponizing disability. Some will say you should have left quietly. You need to decide what outcome you want. I looked at the frozen image on the screen, Ethan driving, me afraid, Serena crying through the speakers like a siren pulling him toward destruction. I want the lie dead. I said, then we kill it carefully. By evening, the story had already started spinning without us. A gossip site posted a blurry clip of me standing at the gala. The headline read, Billionaire's disabled wife shocks donors BY walking after public fight with husband's ex. Disabled wife public fight husband's ex. They made my life sound like a costume drama with better lighting. The comments were worse. Some called me brave, some called me manipulative, some said Ethan must have known. Because a husband would know. I stared at that one for a long time. A husband would know, yes, if he had been one at 8. Ethan sent another message. You need to make a statement before this gets out of control. Say you were emotional. Say Serena's comment was taken out of context. Say we are handling this as a family. I typed nothing. He sent another. My mother says if you force an investigation, she will release information about your mental state after the accident. Rachel read it and smiled like a blade. Excellent, she said. How is that excellent? She put the threat in writing through him. Also, your mental state after a traumatic spinal injury does not justify forgery or financial misuse. It makes them look worse. I leaned back. I used to be afraid of her. Are you still? I thought about it. Marjorie Pierce had ruled every room I entered for years. She never raised her voice when she could lower her expectations until you bent. She complimented like she was forgiving you. She weaponized manners so elegantly that fighting back made you look vulgar. Was I afraid? Maybe, but fear had changed shape before. It made me shrink now. It made me prepare. No, I said, I'm angry. Better. The next morning, Rachel and I met with a crisis communications consultant named Alan Reyes, whom she trusted because he believed silence was a tool, not a personality. He watched the gala video, Serena's text, Ethan's voicemail, and the valet footage without interrupting. Then he said, we release one statement. Short, human, no over-explaining. I don't want pity, I said. Good. Pity has a short shelf life. Clarity lasts longer. He drafted while I watched. At noon, my statement went live on my old personal account, which had been dormant since before the accident. For the past year, I have been recovering from serious injuries after a car accident. My recovery has been private, difficult, and medically supervised. Recent public comments about my disability and marriage were cruel and false. I will not discuss every detail online, but I will correct one lie. I did not cause the accident that injured me. Legal counsel is handling the rest. Thank you to everyone who respects the dignity of disabled and recovering people, whether they stand, sit, walk, use a chair, or need help on any given day. No mention of Ethan, no mention of Serena, no begging, no apology. Within an hour, Dr. Hart reposted it with one sentence: recovery is not deception. Mobility can change, respect should not. That line traveled faster than anything I wrote. By late afternoon, disability advocates were calling out the gala clip. Medical professionals were explaining dynamic disability, partial recovery, pain, braces, relapse. People began asking why Ethan's Foundation for Mobility Access allowed a donor's wife to be mocked in its own ballroom. Then someone found the foundation's tax filings. Then someone noticed the West End outreach program had no public projects listed. Then a journalist emailed Rachel. The lie was not dead yet, but it had started bleeding. Serena posted at 6. Her photos showed her crying in soft lighting, no makeup, wrapped in a beige blanket. I never meant to hurt anyone. People are twisting a private moment. Ethan has sacrificed so much, and I will not stay silent while a good man is destroyed by bitterness. She did not name me. She did not need to. The comments split immediately. Some believed her, some did not. One comment rose fast: if he sacrificed so much, why did his wife's trust pay for your apartment? Serena deleted the post 15 minutes later. Screenshots lived forever. At 9, Ethan called from a new number. I answered because Rachel was beside me, and the call recorder was on. What? I said for a moment. He said nothing. Then, quietly, you're enjoying this. I almost laughed. No, you want everyone to hate me. I want everyone to know what you did. That is not the same as truth. Then release yours. Silence. I heard him breathe. I loved you, he said. The words landed without weight, maybe because they were past tense, maybe because he used them like a receipt. No, I said, you loved being seen loving me. His breath hitched. I continued, you loved the wedding photo, the foundation speeches, the devoted husband image. You loved that I made you look decent. But when I needed decency in private, you outsourced it. That's not fair. Neither was forging my name. He went silent again when he spoke. His voice had changed. You do not know what it was like after the accident. The doctors were vague. You were in pain all the time. My mother was saying the foundation could collapse if donors thought I was distracted. Serena needed help too. I was drowning. And your solution was to hold my head under. That is not what happened. Then explain the rehab cancellations. I thought you needed rest. The email said aggressive treatment would not benefit me. I was trying to protect you. You were protecting your schedule. His voice hardened. You have become cruel. That one almost worked. Not because it was true, because women like me are trained to fear that word more than we fear being harmed. Cruel, difficult, ungrateful, bitter, hard, the language used to push us back into soft cages. I looked at Rachel. She gave me nothing. No nod, no signal. My choice. I have become accurate, I said. Ethan exhaled sharply. My mother wants to meet tomorrow. No lawyers. No, then I'll come to you. If you do, security will remove you. You would do that to your husband. No, I said. I would do that to a man refusing to respect a boundary. He hung up. My hand shook after the call ended. Rachel pretended not to notice until I put the phone down. Then she said, that was good. It didn't feel good. Boundaries rarely do at first. I slept badly that night. At 3 in the morning, I woke to another message, this time from Luis Ortega, the valet, Ms. Bellamy. There is more. I did not want to send it before because I was scared. Mrs. Pierce's assistant came to the restaurant after the crash. She was not alone. Serena Vale was with her. Attached was a photo, blurry, rain-streaked, taken from across the street, Marjorie's Blacktown car outside the restaurant the morning after the accident, her assistant at the door, and Serena, hood up, face half hidden, walking beside him. I sat in bed, staring. Serena had not just called Ethan that night. She had helped clean up the morning after. The next day, Serena came to my hotel, not Ethan, not Marjorie. Serena. She arrived at 10 in the morning wearing oversized sunglasses and a camel coat, carrying a designer bag large enough to hold either a laptop or several bad decisions. Hotel security called before sending her up. I almost said no. Then Rachel, who had stayed over after the late evidence drop, looked at me and said, "Let her talk." So I did, but not alone. The suite door opened to Serena's reflection first, sharp and pale in the hallway mirror. She removed her sunglasses when she saw Rachel sitting at the dining table with a recorder beside her coffee. Serena stopped. "Seriously?" Rachel smiled. "Good morning." Serena looked at me. "Can we speak privately?" "No." Her jaw tightened. "You used to be nicer. I used to be lied to." She walked in anyway, because women like Serena treated rooms as stages and assumed the lighting would favor them. Her eyes moved over my clothes, my cane, the documents stacked on the table. "You look better," she said, disappointed. "I didn't come here to fight." "No, you came here because Lewis sent another photo." For the first time, her mask slipped completely. It was quick, a flash of fear, then she recovered. "I don't know who Lewis is." Rachel tilted her head. "Interesting, we did not mention his last name." Serena looked at Rachel with open hatred, then she turned back to me. "You have no idea what you're doing. Ethan's mother will bury you. She already tried. You think a blurry photo proves something. I think you came here because it proves enough." She laughed, but it sounded thin. "You always were dramatic." I waited. Silence does strange things to liars. They rushed to fill it. Serena placed her bag on the table and leaned toward me. "Fine, I was there the next morning. Marjorie called me. She said Ethan was falling apart, and she needed to know what I had said on the phone. That's all." "You helped delete restaurant footage." "No." Rachel's pen moved. Serena noticed and snapped. "I said no. You also let Ethan tell everyone I grabbed the wheel." I said, "I didn't know what happened." "You knew what you said on the phone." Her face hardened. There she was, not the crying woman from the social media post, not the wounded old love, the real Serena Vale, cornered and furious that her suffering did not outrank mine. "I was in a bad place," she said. "I called someone I trusted. You threatened suicide to get a married man to leave dinner with his wife. I did not ask him to speed. No, you only made sure he felt responsible for saving you." She flinched, but anger came right after. "You have no idea what Ethan and I were to each other." "I know enough. You got the marriage, the house, the name. His family chose you. Everyone chose you." I almost laughed. "The sound would have been ugly, Serena. I was in a wheelchair in a back room while you wore jewelry bought with disability charity funds. Do not stand in front of me and talk about what I got." Her mouth twisted. "He stayed with you out of guilt." There it was, the sentence she had probably rehearsed. The one meant to stab deep. It did not anymore. "No," I said. "He stayed because leaving me would damage his image. He went to you because you made him feel heroic without requiring him to be honorable. That is not love. That is a transaction." Her eyes shone with tears. This time, I believed them. People can be cruel and still be in pain. The pain does not purify the cruelty. Serena looked away first. Marjorie handled the footage. She said quietly. Rachel stopped writing. My pulse slowed. "Say that again," Rachel said. Serena glared at her. "I'm not giving you a statement. You already are," Rachel replied. Serena looked at me. "You want truth? Fine." Marjorie called me the next morning. She said Ethan told her you two had argued in the car. She said if the press thought he was distracted by another woman, the foundation would be ruined. She asked what I said on the call. I told her I was upset. She told me to forget the call happened. And the restaurant, she said there was footage from the entrance. She sent her assistant. I went because, Serena swallowed, because Ethan asked me to. My hands went cold. Ethan knew. She looked at me with something almost like pity. Of course he knew. The room went very still for months. A small part of me had imagined Ethan as weak rather than malicious, cowardly, not calculating, a man who let his mother steer the cover-up because he could not face the truth. But Serena had just taken that from him. "Good, let every excuse die." Rachel's voice was calm. "Did Ethan ask you directly to go with Marjorie's assistant?" Serena pressed her lips together then nodded once. "Words," Rachel said. "Yes." I stood, not because the moment required drama, because sitting still had become impossible. Pain rose immediately, but I held the cane and stayed upright. Serena watched me this time. There was no mockery in her face, only wariness. "You knew," I said. "I knew he was scared. You knew he was lying. I knew he was trying not to lose everything. He had already lost me. She looked away. No, she said. You were still there. That was the ugliest truth in the room. I had still been there, in the hospital bed, in the wheelchair, in the townhouse, at family dinners, at foundation events, in every photo where Ethan's hand rested on my shoulder like proof of virtue. My presence had protected him, my silence had fed them all. I sat down again before my knees gave out. Serena picked up her bag. Don't drag me into this, she said. I looked at her. You dragged yourself in the morning, you helped bury evidence. Her face hardened. If you release my name, I'll tell people you knew about us and stayed for money. Rachel laughed softly. Serena's eyes snapped to her. Rachel said. Veil, threatening defamation in front of opposing counsel is bold, not wise, but bold. Serena's fingers tightened around her bag. I said, I don't need to ruin you, you did enough. She stared at me for a long moment, then she said the one thing I did not expect. He doesn't love me either. The words fell between us, no performance, no poison, just fact. I did not comfort her, that was another old habit I let die. No, I said, he doesn't. She left without another word when the door closed. Rachel stopped the recorder. That was extremely useful. I looked at the place Serena had been standing. Did she mean to help us? No, but fear makes people generous. My phone rang. Ethan, Rachel and I looked at each other. I answered. His voice was low and furious. What did you say to Serena? She came to me. Do not play games. Interesting. She said the same thing about your mother. Silence. Then, you recorded her. Of course. You had no right. That sentence is starting to mean nothing from you. He breathed hard through the phone. She is fragile, he said. I closed my eyes. The old script. Serena was fragile, Marjorie was proud, Ethan was overwhelmed, and I was supposed to be strong enough to absorb all of them quietly. No, I said, she is accountable. You're turning into someone I don't recognize. Then allow me to introduce myself. I hung up. By afternoon, Rachel had prepared a revised legal strategy. The photo of Serena with Marjorie's assistant, combined with Serena's recorded admission, would support a claim of intentional concealment of evidence. The forged medical authorization would support challenges to decisions made during my recovery. The financial records were expanding into something uglier than marital betrayal. The Pierce Foundation had billed accessibility outreach expenses that were not accessible and did not reach anyone in need. My trust had funded the image of charity while Serena lived above the Hudson. At 4, Alan called. The journalist is ready, he said. She has tax filings, the deleted Serena post, and confirmation that the foundation cancelled 3 grant programs while paying West End rent. She wants comment. Rachel looked at me. My choice again. I thought about the slogan glowing behind me at the gala, restoring dignity, restoring lives. I thought about Serena's voice saying sitting is all she does now. I thought about every patient who had applied for ramp funding or mobility equipment and received a polite rejection because the outreach account had been drained into lies. Give her a statement, I said. Alan's voice sharpened. From you? Yes. What do you want it to say? I looked at the medical binder, then at my cane. Say the foundation raised money in the name of people like me while teaching me to be ashamed of needing help. Say I am cooperating with all lawful reviews. Say disability is not a prop, marriage is not immunity, and pity is not accountability. There was a pause. Alan said, that will land. It should. That evening, the article went live this time. The headline did not make me small. Pierce Foundation faces questions over funds after founder's wife alleges medical and financial misconduct. Ethan's picture appeared beside mine in his. He was smiling at a podium in mine. I was standing at the gala, one hand gripping my cane, Serena pale behind me. The caption read, Natalie Bellamy Pierce stood after a public insult about her disability. Now her legal team is asking what else was hidden. By midnight, 3 board members resigned. By morning, the Attorney General's Charity Bureau requested documents at breakfast. Rachel handed me coffee and said, they are going to panic. My phone lit up. Marjorie Pierce, not a call, a message. Come to the house tonight, alone, or I will release every private medical detail I have. I showed Rachel. She smiled. She still thinks shame works. I looked at the message once. It had tonight. It would not. Marjorie called it dinner. It was not dinner. It was a tribunal with linen napkins. I arrived at the Pierce mansion at 7 with Rachel beside me and a private security guard waiting outside. Marjorie had said alone. I had not promised obedience. The mansion stood behind iron gates on a street where old money hid behind trimmed hedges and good manners. I had spent my first Thanksgiving as Ethan's wife in that dining room, terrified of using the wrong fork. Marjorie had corrected me gently in front of 12 people. Bellamy's were practical people, weren't they? She had said. No shame in that. No shame, she was always fluent in it tonight. The dining room table was set for 5, Marjorie at the head, Ethan to her right, Serena to her left, which told me more than any speech. Across from Serena sat Charles Weatherby, chairman of the Pierce Foundation Board, a silver-haired man who had once called me our brave girl while ignoring every word I said about accessible grant criteria. The 5th place setting was mine. Rachel stood behind my chair. Marjorie looked at her with disgust. This is a private family matter. Rachel smiled. Then you should not have invited the board chairman. Charles cleared his throat. Ethan looked exhausted. He had not shaved. His tie was crooked. A petty, wounded part of me noticed and remembered fixing it with my own hands for years. Serena looked furious and frightened. She avoided my eyes. Marjorie gestured to my chair. Sit. I remained standing with my cane. No. Her nostrils flared. Ethan said quietly, Natalie, please, we can still keep some dignity. I looked around the room. The crystal, the silver, the portraits of Pierce men who had built fortunes and Pierce women who had preserved reputations. This room has never been about dignity, I said. It has been about appearance. Charles shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps we should begin with practical matters. Excellent, Rachel said. Practical matters are my favorite. Marjorie ignored her and looked at me. You have created a public crisis based on grief, jealousy, and incomplete information. I laughed once. She hated that. You may find this amusing, she continued, but the foundation supports real people. Does it? Charles winced. Marjorie's gaze sharpened. Careful. I opened my bag and took out a folder. Let's be careful together. I placed the first document on the table. 3 cancelled mobility grants from last spring, all approved, then frozen. Total amount almost identical to 6 months of Serena's West End rent. Serena's face burned. That is not my fault, she said. No, your fault was living there. Ethan snapped. Enough. I looked at him. You defended her faster than you ever defended me. The sentence landed hard. He looked away. Marjorie leaned forward. Those grant delays had administrative causes. Rachel placed another document beside mine. Internal email from Foundation Finance stating outreach funds were being redirected at Mr. Pierce's request to a consulting housing expense. Charles turned slowly toward Ethan. Ethan's voice was low. It was temporary cash flow management. Rachel's eyebrows rose. For a mistress's apartment. Serena stood. Stop calling me that. I looked at her. What would you prefer? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Charles removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Marjorie still had not lost control. I could see her adjusting. Searching for the next pressure point. She found it. Natalie, she said softly, do you want every journalist in this city reading about your episodes after the accident? The crying, the confusion, the medication, the time you screamed at a nurse because you thought Ethan had abandoned you. The room went silent. There it was, the medical shame she had promised a year ago. It would have destroyed me. I would have apologized for needing pain medication, for being afraid, for crying when I woke up alone, for asking the nurse where my husband was and panicking when she said he had left. Now I looked at Marjorie and felt something almost like pity, not soft pity, cold pity. She had brought a rusted knife to a gunfight. I did scream, I said. Ethan's head lifted. Marjorie blinked. I continued. I woke after spinal surgery in more pain than I knew a body could hold. I was confused. I was terrified. I asked for my husband. He was not there. A nurse tried to calm me, and I screamed because I thought I had been left behind. My voice did not break. Yes, Marjorie, I was traumatized. Thank you for giving me a chance to say that in front of your witness. Charles looked at the table. Rachel's expression did not change, but her eyes warmed. I turned to Ethan. Where were you? His face went pale. Don't, he said. Where were you when I woke up screaming? He said nothing. Serena stared at her plate. I looked at her. Do you remember? Her lips trembled. Marjorie snapped. Serena, Serena whispered. He was with me. The words moved through the room like smoke. Charles closed his eyes. I nodded once. Thank you. Ethan looked at Serena as if she had betrayed him. That almost made me laugh. Men like Ethan always thought truth was betrayal when it stopped serving them. Marjorie stood so quickly her chair scraped the floor. This is emotional manipulation. No, I said. This is a timeline. I placed the next document down. Hospital call log. The nurse called Ethan 4 times after I woke. No answer. His phone location, which we will subpoena if necessary, places him at the Lowell Hotel. Serena whispered. Ethan. He turned on her. You said you wanted truth. I didn't know she woke up. That was the first thing she said all night that sounded human. I believed her again. It did not save her. Marjorie's hand tightened on the back of her chair. You are destroying your husband over one night. One night. I asked. I took out the rehab cancellation emails. One night became 3 cancelled rehab appointments, the forged authorization. One night became my signature on a document I never signed, the apartment lease. One night became foundation funds paying for Serena's home, the gala transcript. One night became your guest calling me crippled while my husband told me not to make a scene. I placed the final page on the table, a still from the valet video, Ethan's car in the rain, Serena's name glowing on the dashboard. And one night became a lie that trapped me inside a marriage built on my silence. No one moved. I sat down then, not because I was defeated, because my leg was shaking, and I no longer believed dignity required pretending pain did not exist. That was another freedom. Charles cleared his throat. Ethan, is the video authentic? Ethan looked at his mother. Marjorie stared straight ahead. The old system still tried to function. Son waiting for mother, mother calculating risk, mistress frozen. Chairman begging silently for a version that would not ruin everyone, but the documents were on the table now. Paper does not care about family hierarchy. I don't know, Ethan said. Rachel smiled. Then you won't object to forensic review. He glared at her. Charles stood slowly. I think the board needs independent counsel. Marjorie's head snapped toward him. Charles, he looked tired, older than when we arrived. Marjorie, if even half of this is accurate, the board has exposure. Exposure, not guilt, not harm. Exposure. Still, it was enough. People like Charles rarely found morality before liability, but liability could drag them into the same room. Serena grabbed her bag. I'm leaving. Ethan stood. Serena, wait. I watched him. Even with his marriage bleeding out on the table, he moved toward her first. That final reflex was more honest than any apology he could ever give me. Serena looked at him and shook her head. You said she ruined everything. She whispered, you ruined everything. Then she left. Ethan stood in the doorway, torn between following her and salvaging the room. I stood too, slower. I used to think I lost you after the accident, I said. He turned back. But I think I lost you before it. The accident just made it visible. His face cracked then a little. Not enough, Natalie, he said. I made mistakes. No, I picked up my folder. You made choices. Marjorie's voice was low. If you walk out now, do not expect to come back into this family. I looked at her, at the portraits at the table, at the chair where I had spent years trying to sit correctly enough to be accepted. I'm not walking out of a family, I said. I'm walking out of a performance. Rachel opened the dining room door this time. I did not look back. Outside, the air was cold and clean. My leg hurt so badly that I had to lean against the car before getting in. Rachel waited until the door shut, then she said, you know they will retaliate. I looked at the mansion through the tinted window. Lights glowed in every room. For years I had mistaken brightness for warmth. I know, I said. My phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. Please, just talk to me alone. I can explain what my mother did. I stared at it. Then another message arrived. From Serena. He is going to blame Marjorie. Don't let him. Ask about the second phone. I looked at Rachel. What second phone? Rachel's eyes sharpened, and just like that, the night opened another door. The second phone was not in Ethan's name. Of course it wasn't. Rachel found the first trace through a hotel invoice Serena forwarded after midnight. She did not include a message, just a screenshot from the Lowell Hotel dated 2 weeks after my accident. Room service for 2, valet charge, a partial phone number listed under guest contact, not Ethan's public number, not his office number, a prepaid line billed through one of the foundation's event vendors. Rachel stared at the screenshot for a full minute, then she said, Serena is trying to save herself, by helping me, by handing us Ethan before he hands her over. I sat at the kitchen island in the suite, wrapped in a blanket, my brace loosened beneath the counter. My body felt like a house after a storm, still standing, but with windows cracked and wires exposed. What would the second phone prove? I asked. Depends what is on it. Affair communications, accident night messages, coordination with his mother, financial instructions. If he used a separate phone to avoid discovery, that matters. Can we get it? Not without process, but we can ask for preservation. And if he denies it exists after we show a basis, that becomes useful. I looked at the screenshot again. There was something almost pathetic about it. A secret phone, a hotel room, a woman who thought she was chosen because she had access to his hidden life, only to realize hidden things are easy to deny. I did not feel sorry for Serena, but I understood the shape of the trap. Ethan made every woman around him compete for partial truths. His mother got the dutiful son, Serena got the desperate lover, I got the wounded husband. None of us got the whole man, maybe because there was not much hole inside him. The next morning, Rachel sent a preservation notice specifically naming the second phone. Ethan responded within 20 minutes. Not through counsel, directly to me. There is no second phone. Serena is lying because she's scared. Do not let her poison you more than she already has. I screenshotted it, then I called Rachel. She was right, I said. Rachel sighed happily. I do enjoy when they lie in writing. At noon, the Pierce Foundation announced that Ethan would take a temporary leave pending internal review. The statement was polished, bloodless, and cowardly. It referred to recent allegations and a commitment to transparency. It did not mention me, it did not mention disabled grant recipients, it did not mention Serena's apartment, but it was the first visible crack in Ethan's public life. He had built his identity on being needed. The foundation needed him, his mother needed him. Serena needed him, I needed him now. One by one, those needs were turning into liabilities. At 3, I returned to Dr. Hart's clinic, not for strategy for my body. The clinic smelled like rubber mats, disinfectant, and effort. It was the only place in the world where people saw me struggle and did not confuse struggle with failure. Dr. Hart watched me walk between parallel bars. Slow down, she said. I am going slow. Your face says revenge speed. My face is not medically relevant, it is when it makes you reckless. I took another step. My left leg dragged slightly. I corrected. Pain sparked. I kept going. At the end of the bars, I turned. A woman on the next mat, maybe 25, watched me with wide eyes. She wore a knee immobilizer and had tear tracks on her cheeks. Were you the woman from the video? She asked. Dr. Hart gave me a quick look, asking without words if I wanted privacy. I leaned against the bar. Yes. The young woman swallowed. My boyfriend sent it to me. He said, see, if she can stand. You can stop being dramatic too. Something inside me clenched. There it was, the other edge of public storytelling. People can twist your survival into a weapon against someone else. I'm sorry, I said. She looked embarrassed. No, I didn't mean to make you feel bad. You didn't. I tightened my grip on the bar. But he was wrong. My standing does not measure your pain. Nobody's recovery is a deadline for yours. Her face crumpled. Dr. Hart looked away, giving her dignity. I understood then why the statement mattered. Why language mattered. Why Serena's insult was not just personal cruelty. When people mock one body, they train the room to mock others. I had wanted to kill the lie for myself. Now I wanted to kill it properly. After therapy, Alan called. 2 networks want interviews. He said, no, one morning show, no, a disability rights podcast. I paused. Rachel, listening on speaker, looked at me. Alan said, they have a strong reputation, no sensational angle. They want to talk about dynamic disability, public humiliation, and charity accountability. You control the accident details. I thought of the young woman in the clinic. Yes, I said, that one. We recorded the interview. 2 days later, in a small studio with soft grey walls, the host, Maya Brooks, used a wheelchair and had the calm directness of someone who had heard every bad excuse twice. She did not ask if I forgave Ethan. She did not ask if I still loved him. She asked, what did it feel like to stand up in a room that had already decided what your body meant? I sat with that, then answered honestly. Painful, I said, not empowering at first. Painful. I think people want the moment where someone stands to mean they are healed, free, triumphant. But I stood because I was angry, and I sat down afterward because I needed to. Both mattered. Maya nodded, and the insult, it was meant to reduce me to a chair. But the truth is, I used a wheelchair. I still use it. I use a cane. I use braces. Some days I walk better than others. None of that made me less of a wife, less of a woman, or less worthy of respect. The producer behind the glass lifted his head. Maya asked, what would you say to people who accuse you of hiding your recovery? I looked into the microphone. I would ask why they believe a woman owes constant proof of suffering to deserve kindness. After the interview aired, the conversation shifted. Not everywhere. The internet is never one room, but enough The foundation's donors began asking whether their names had been used to decorate neglect. Grant applicants came forward saying they had been ignored after being promised support. A former staffer anonymously confirmed that outreach funds were redirected for executive discretion. Ethan's leave became indefinite. Marjorie stopped texting me. That worried Rachel more than the threats. Quiet means strategy, she said. Strategy arrived through court filings. Ethan filed a response to my separation petition claiming I had intentionally concealed physical recovery in order to manipulate public sympathy and damage his reputation. I read the sentence while sitting in Rachel's office, then I read it again. Manipulate public sympathy. The man who had wheeled me onto gala stages beneath foundation banners was accusing me of manipulating sympathy because I took the handles back. Rachel watched me. We expected this. Yes. Still hurts. Yes. Good. Stay honest. Then we answer. The answer was not emotional, it was devastating. Dr. Hart provided a medical statement explaining variable mobility and documented rehab progression. Clinic records showed my appointments began only after I personally contacted them, months after Ethan cancelled earlier referrals. Insurance logs showed communication routed through Ethan's forged authorization. Photos showed my wheelchair use on days both before and after the gala. No lie, no miracle, just a body recovering in uneven, inconvenient truth. The filing also included Ethan's voicemail telling me not to touch the accounts, Serena's insult recording, and his text denying the second phone after evidence suggested otherwise. 2 days after our response, Rachel received notice that Ethan had retained criminal defense counsel. She called me immediately. That does not mean charges, she said. It means he is worried about the foundation review and the forged medical form. Is that good? It is serious. Serious, the word sat heavily. Part of me had wanted accountability in the clean way stories promise it. Villain exposed. Crowd gasps. Woman walks away. Real accountability was slower and uglier. Forms, filings, interviews, pain flares, nights when I missed the person Ethan had pretended to be and hated myself for. Missing a mask that evening, I went back to the townhouse with a moving crew and police civil standby. Ethan was there, so was the second phone, not openly, not handed over. It buzzed inside the drawer of his study desk while the officer stood in the doorway. The sound was soft. Once, twice Ethan's face changed. Rachel heard it, so did I. I looked at the drawer, then at him. Still no second phone. I asked. The officer's gaze shifted. Ethan closed his eyes. The drawer buzzed again. Rachel smiled. Mr. Pierce, she said, I strongly suggest you do not touch that. For once, Ethan obeyed. The officer did not seize the phone. That was not how civil standby worked, and Rachel cared too much about clean procedure to let emotion contaminate evidence. But the buzzing drawer changed everything. Ethan could deny a screenshot. He could deny Serena. He could deny me. He could not deny a hidden phone vibrating 3 feet away in front of a police officer, my attorney, and 2 movers holding a box of my books. His face went gray. Work phone, he said. Rachel tilted her head. The work phone you said did not exist. I said there was no second phone related to Serena. The drawer buzzed again. I stepped toward the desk. Ethan moved faster. The officer spoke immediately. Sir, don't. Ethan froze. That moment, more than the gala, more than the dinner, more than any legal notice, showed me who he had become, a man who reached to protect a device before he reached to protect a wife. Maybe he had always been that man. I simply had not been evidence before. Rachel's voice stayed calm. We will address this through counsel. Ethan looked at me. Natalie, this is enough. I looked around the study, his framed awards, his leather chair, the wedding photo still on the shelf, turned slightly toward the wall. My father's old first edition novels boxed near the door because I had asked the movers to take every trace of Bellamy out of this house. No, I said, enough was when you let her mock me at the gala, everything after that is consequence. Pain shot down my leg as I turned, but I did not let him see it on my face. In the bedroom, the movers packed quietly. I took only what was mine: clothes, books, jewelry from my father, medical equipment, files, paintings I had bought before marriage. I left the furniture. I left the wedding china. I left the silver frame Marjorie had given us with the inscription "A proper Pierce home." Proper could stay with them at the closet. I found a showbox on the top shelf. Inside were cards from Ethan, old ones before the foundation, before Serena returned, before the accident. Natalie, you are the best thing I never deserved. I sat on the edge of the bed and held that card until my thumb pressed a crescent into the paper. The worst part of betrayal is not learning they lied today. It is wondering when the truth ended. Was he lying when he wrote this, or did love turn into entitlement so slowly neither of us noticed until it had teeth? I put the card back in the box, then I left the box on his pillow. I did not need souvenirs from the version of him that no longer existed. Downstairs, Ethan waited near the front door. The officer stood outside with the movers. Rachel gave us enough space to speak, but not enough for him to rewrite the room. I didn't want this, Ethan said. I almost smiled. You keep saying things like they happened to you. His eyes were bloodshot. My life is collapsing. No, the version built on my silence is collapsing. He looked away. I made mistakes. Choices, I corrected again. His jaw tightened. Fine. Choices, I made bad choices, but you are acting like I planned to hurt you. I thought about the cancelled appointments, the forged form, the deleted footage, the apartment, the speeches. Did you plan to help me? I asked. He said nothing. There it was. Not every cruelty begins as a plan. Some begin as convenience, then cowardice protects them, then pride makes them permanent. I picked up my bag. Ethan's voice broke. I was scared. I paused. At the hospital, he said, when they said you might not walk again, when my mother said the foundation could lose donors, when Serena kept calling, when you looked at me like I had failed you, I was scared all the time. For 1 second, I saw him as he wanted to be seen, not evil, just overwhelmed, a man crushed by pressure. Then I remembered waking alone. You were scared, I said, so you made me smaller until your fear felt manageable. His eyes filled. The tears came too late. I stepped past him. He whispered, "Do you still love me?" That question stopped me, not because I did not know the answer, because I did. Yes, I said. Hope flashed across his face. I let him have it for one breath, then I finished, but not enough to disappear for you. I walked out. The movers loaded my boxes into the truck. Rachel helped me into the car. The officer nodded politely and left. As we pulled away, I saw Ethan standing alone in the open doorway. Behind him, the house looked enormous. Empty houses always do when the truth moves out. The second phone entered the case through a formal demand 3 days later. Ethan's attorneys resisted. Then Serena's attorney, newly hired and clearly eager to separate her from Ethan's sinking ship, produced copies of messages. Not all enough. Texts from the second phone showed Ethan asking Serena to accompany Marjorie's assistant to the restaurant. Need to make sure no footage makes this worse. Mom will handle manager. Just be calm. Another from 2 weeks after the crash. Natalie is still confused. If she remembers the call, deny details. She grabbed my arm. That is the story. Another from the month I was supposed to start intensive rehab. Doctor keeps pushing aggressive treatment. If she improves too fast, questions start. Need time. I read that one in Rachel's office and felt the floor tilt. If she improves too fast, questions start. Not because he thought I could not recover, because he was afraid I would. Rachel swore under her breath. It was the first time I had heard her do that. Priya cried openly. I did not cry. I stared at the message until the words stopped being words and became a door slamming shut. If she improves too fast, questions start. My recovery had threatened his lie, so he slowed it. There are betrayals that end love. There are betrayals that end the person who loved. That message did both. Rachel touched the paper gently. Natalie, I want this in court. Yes, I want the foundation board to see it. Yes, I want his mother to see it. Yes, and I want the divorce finalized without a confidentiality clause. Rachel smiled. That, she said, will cost him. Good. Ethan called that night. I did not answer. He sent a voice message. I did not play it until morning. With Rachel present, his voice sounded wrecked. Natalie, I know what you saw. I can explain. That message looks worse than it was. I was trying to protect us from speculation. I thought if you recovered slowly, quietly, we could manage the narrative and then move forward. I never wanted to hurt your body. You have to believe that. He paused. Then, softer, I miss my wife. I deleted the message from my phone after Rachel saved a copy. My wife. Even now, he missed possession and called it love. The preliminary hearing for temporary orders took place the following week. It was not dramatic at first. Courtrooms are smaller than people imagine, less polished, more fluorescent. Lives break under bad lighting every day. Ethan sat across from me in a navy suit. Marjorie sat behind him, wearing black like she was attending the funeral of her reputation. Serena was not there, but her attorney was. Rachel presented the financial freeze requests, document preservation issues, medical interference concerns. and the need for exclusive access to my personal medical records. Ethan's attorney argued that the marriage had been strained by trauma and public misunderstanding. Rachel placed the second phone message into evidence for the temporary hearing. If she improves too fast, questions start. The judge read it. The room changed, not loudly but completely. The judge looked at Ethan over her glasses. Mr. Pierce, what questions were you worried would start? Ethan's attorney stood. Your Honor, my client disputes context. The judge did not look away from Ethan. I asked Mr. Pierce. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it. Marjorie's hand clenched on the bench behind him. I watched him search for a version of the truth small enough to survive. He did not find one. The judge granted the temporary financial protections. She ordered preservation of devices and communications. She restricted Ethan from accessing my medical records. She granted me exclusive possession of my personal property and barred him from contacting my care providers. Each order landed like a nail sealing a door. When we left the courtroom, reporters waited outside. Rachel had prepared me. No details, no performance, no anger for cameras to feast on. A reporter called. Mrs. Pierce, do you believe your husband delayed your recovery? I stopped. Rachel's hand hovered near my elbow but did not touch. I looked at the cameras. My medical recovery belongs to me, I said. So does the truth. Both were interfered with. I trust the process to show that. Another reporter shouted. Are you seeking reconciliation? Ethan emerged behind me in time to hear the question. I did not look at him. No, I said, I am seeking freedom. That clip led every evening segment, not because it was dramatic, because it was clear and clarity. I was learning. Frightened people who survived on fog. The Charity Bureau hearing was not a criminal trial, but it felt like a public autopsy. The Pierce Foundation board sat at one table with independent counsel. Ethan sat at another with his attorneys. Marjorie sat behind him, no longer queen of the room but still dressed like she expected the room to remember. Serena appeared under subpoena, pale and furious, with her own lawyer whispering constantly in her ear. I sat beside Rachel, not in the wheelchair at first, in a regular chair, cane folded against my knee. When my back began to spasm after the first hour, I switched to the wheelchair without apology. A camera from the bureau recorded everything. Not for gossip, for record that mattered. A woman named Denise Alvarez led the questioning. She was deputy director of oversight, with silver hair pulled into a low bun and the patient expression of someone who had watched rich people mistake confusion for defense. She began with the foundation's mission: mobility access, rehabilitation support, emergency grants, home modification. Then she moved to spending. Mr. Pierce, she said, please explain why funds allocated to the New Start Home Ramp initiative were used to cover monthly payments connected to a residential lease on West End Avenue. Ethan's attorney leaned toward the microphone. We dispute the characterization of those payments. Denise looked at him. The leaseholder's beneficial occupant was Ms. Serena Vale. Correct. Serena stared at the table. Her attorney said, Ms. Vale was not involved in foundation accounting. Denise did not blink. That was not my question. Ethan's attorney shifted. Ethan finally spoke. The apartment was used during a period of personal crisis. Denise waited. Ethan added, there were security concerns. Rachel's pen stopped. Security concerns. I looked at Serena. Even she looked startled. Denise checked a document. Security concerns for whom? Ethan hesitated. For Ms. Vale. Why would a mobility access charity pay housing costs for your former romantic partner due to personal security concerns? Silence. Marjorie's face tightened behind him. Ethan's attorney said, we may need to confer. Denise marked something on her folder. You will have an opportunity. Then came the cancelled grants. One by one, names appeared: a veteran waiting for a ramp, a mother needing bathroom modifications after a stroke, a teacher seeking adaptive driving equipment. Each application approved in committee, each payment delayed, each delay occurring while the West End charges cleared. I had known the numbers, I had not known the names. That was worse. Money becomes abstract until you see who stood behind it. By the third applicant, my throat burned. Ethan did not look at me. Good, if he had, I might have thrown something. Then Denise opened the medical interference section. Mrs. Pierce, you are not required to answer personal medical questions beyond the scope of your submitted statement. Do you understand? Yes. Did you authorize Ethan Pierce to cancel or delay recommended rehabilitation appointments on your behalf? No. Did you sign the medical authorization form dated 3 days after your accident? No. Were you aware that communications from multiple rehabilitation providers were routed through your husband's office? No. Did that delay affect your recovery? Rachel could have answered with records, Dr. Hart could have answered as a clinician, but Denise asked me. I took a breath. Yes, I said, it delayed treatment. It also made me believe there were fewer options than there were. I thought my body had failed. Later, I learned information had been kept from me. Denise's voice softened slightly. Thank you. Ethan shifted. I did not look at him. Then Serena testified. She tried to minimize at first. She said she had been emotionally vulnerable. She said Ethan had offered support. She said she did not understand the source of the apartment payments. Denise let her speak, then played the gala recording. Serena's voice filled the room. Sitting is all she does now. The words sounded uglier without champagne and music around them. Serena closed her eyes. Denise paused the recording. Miss Vale, at the time you made that comment, were you aware the foundation hosting the event served people with mobility-related disabilities? Serena's lips trembled. Yes. Were you aware Mrs. Pierce was recovering from injuries sustained in a car accident? Yes. Were you aware your housing costs were connected to foundation accounts intended for accessibility outreach? Serena's attorney objected to form. Denise rephrased. Serena looked at Ethan. He did not look back. That was when she broke. Not fully, not nobly, not because she suddenly found a conscience shining under the wreckage, because Ethan abandoned her in public the way he had abandoned me in private. I asked him where the money came from. She said. Ethan's head snapped up. His attorney whispered urgently. Serena continued, voice shaking. He told me not to worry. He said Natalie's trust owed him because he had been stuck taking care of her. He said the foundation account was temporary. Denise asked, did he use those words, stuck taking care of her? Serena swallowed. Yes. The room blurred for a second. Rachel's hand touched the edge of the table near mine. Not me, just near enough. Ethan stood. That is not fair. Denise looked at him. Sit down, Mr. Pierce. He sat. Serena wiped her cheeks angrily. He told me Natalie would never know. He told me she was too dependent to leave. He told me if she ever remembered the accident clearly, his mother would handle it. Marjorie spoke for the first time. You ungrateful little liar. Denise turned. Mrs. Pierce, you are not testifying at this moment. Marjorie's face flushed dark red. Serena laughed once, broken and bitter. That's what you called me when I asked if Natalie could die. The room went silent. Every sound disappeared except the hum of the recording equipment. I felt the words before I understood them. Rachel leaned forward. Denise's expression changed. Explain that. Serena looked at me for the first time. There was no triumph in her face now, only wreckage. After the accident, she said, Ethan was panicking. Marjorie came to the hotel. She said if Natalie died, everything would become simpler legally because the trust had certain spousal provisions. I asked if she was saying Natalie might die. She told me not to be sentimental. My hands went numb. Ethan turned on his mother. What the hell, Mom? Marjorie's lips parted. That is a grotesque distortion. Rachel wrote quickly, face stone cold. Denise paused the hearing for 10 minutes. I did not move. Rachel bent close. Natalie, look at me. I did. We do not know full context yet. I laughed softly. It scared me. Context, I know. Do you? Her eyes softened. Yes. But I need you anchored. Anchored. I looked down at my hands. No ring, no tremor, just numbness. When the hearing resumed, Marjorie was questioned. She denied everything, politely, elegantly, completely. She denied directing deletion of footage. She denied influencing medical decisions. She denied knowledge of the apartment funding. She denied making comments about my death. She denied until denial itself became a portrait. Then Denise played the recording from the dinner at the mansion. Marjorie's voice filled the hearing room. You do not want every journalist in this city reading about your episodes after the accident. Then my voice. Yes, Marjorie, I was traumatized. Thank you for giving me a chance to say that in front of your witness. Then Serena's whisper. He was with me. The room listened. Marjorie stared straight ahead. Denise stopped the audio. Mrs. Pierce, did you threaten to release private medical information to pressure Mrs. Natalie Bellamy Pierce? Marjorie said. I was trying to protect my family. Denise nodded once. It was the kind of nod that meant she had what she needed. By the end of the day, the foundation's accounts were frozen pending further review. Ethan was removed from operational control. The Bureau referred certain issues for further investigation. The board issued an emergency statement apologizing to grant applicants and committing to restitution from non-restricted reserves and clawbacks. None of that healed my spine, none of that erased the year, but public record had done what family rooms never would. It named harm outside the building. Ethan waited near the steps. Rachel stiffened. "It's okay," I said. She stayed close. Ethan looked ruined for once. "I did not feel responsible for repairing the sight of him, Natalie," he said. "No, I didn't know she said that, about my death." His face crumpled. "I swear, maybe you didn't." He looked up, desperate. "But you knew enough," I said. "You knew she was deleting evidence. You knew you blamed me. You knew you slowed my rehab. You knew you spent money meant for disabled people on Serena. You knew I woke up alone." Tears slipped down his face. "I can't undo it. No, I'll tell the truth, publicly. I'll say I lied." "Good." His eyes lit with terrible hope. I extinguished it. "But not for me, for the record." He reached for my hand. I moved it away. He froze. "I want to come home," he whispered. I stared at him. After everything, he still thought home was a place he could return to because remorse had made him cold. "You don't want home," I said. "You want shelter." He started to speak. I cut him off. "I am not shelter anymore." I left him on the steps that night. I went back to the suite, took off my brace, and cried until my ribs hurt. Not because I wanted him back, because I finally understood how close I had come to never getting myself back. Divorce mediation took place in a room with beige walls, bad coffee, and a bowl of peppermints nobody touched. It felt too ordinary for the end of a marriage. No thunder, no chandeliers, no dramatic staircase, just lawyers, paper, and two people who once promised forever sitting on opposite sides of a polished table. Ethan looked thinner. He had resigned from the foundation 2 days earlier, not stepped back, not taken leave, resigned. The official statement admitted serious failures in judgment and governance. It did not include every truth, but it included enough for donors to demand more. Marjorie's social invitations vanished first, then her committee seats, then the museum gala chair she had held for 14 years. Serena had moved out of West End Avenue. Her attorney was negotiating cooperation. Everyone was falling into their own consequences. I did not feel victorious. I felt clear. That was better. The mediator, a retired judge named Helen Strauss, began with practical terms: marital property division, trust separation, medical privacy protections, non-disparagement, restitution. Ethan's attorney pushed for confidentiality. Rachel said no. They pushed again. Rachel said, "My client will not sign any agreement preventing her from discussing her own medical history, disability, marriage, recovery, or public legal records." Ethan looked at me. "I'm not trying to silence you," he said. I waited. He corrected himself. "I don't want this to follow us forever. There is no us." Pain crossed his face. I did not comfort him. Judge Strauss looked over the proposed terms. "Mr. Pierce, given the pending reviews, confidentiality around underlying facts may not be enforceable or appropriate." His attorney whispered to him. Ethan rubbed his face. "Fine," he said. "No confidentiality." Marjorie was not in the room. That was one mercy, but her influence lingered in the first settlement offer, which tried to classify several payments from my trust as voluntary marital support with no reimbursement. Rachel placed bank records beside the offer: West End lease, household account for Mrs. Marjorie Pierce, foundation transfers misallocated, private security, cancelled accessibility expenses. "We are prepared to litigate tracing." Ethan's attorney sighed. Ethan said quietly, "Pay it." His attorney turned. "Ethan, pay it," he repeated. I studied him a year ago. I would have mistaken that for nobility. Now I saw exhaustion. He was not making amends. He was trying to stop bleeding. Judge Strauss moved to the medical authorization issue. Ethan's attorney said carefully, "Mr. Pierce does not admit intentional forgery but acknowledges serious irregularities in the execution and use of the document." Rachel smiled. "That language is adorable." Judge Strauss coughed into her hand. I almost laughed. Ethan looked at me for a moment. The room shifted. I saw the man from our honeymoon, sunburned and laughing because he had dropped his sunglasses into the ocean. I saw him dancing barefoot in our first apartment because we had no furniture yet. I saw every good moment lined up like witnesses for the defense. Then I saw the message: "If she improves too fast, questions start." The witnesses sat down. The mediator called a break. I went to the hallway vending machine, more for movement than hunger. My hip was stiff from sitting too long. Ethan followed. Rachel saw and started To rise, I shook my head once. She stayed where she was, watching through the glass. Ethan stopped several feet away. At least he had learned distance. I found the cards, he said. I knew which ones. I left them for you. Why? Because they belong to whoever you were when you wrote them. He flinched. I meant them. Maybe, I did love you. I looked at the vending machine, rows of candy behind glass, everything visible, nothing reachable without cost. I believe you loved me in the ways you understood love, I said. I also believe your love became dangerous the moment it required my silence. His eyes filled. I keep thinking about the hospital, he whispered, about you waking up. Don't tell me, he swallowed. I need to say it. I am not your confessional. That stopped him. It stopped me too. There was a time I would have listened because his guilt felt like proof that I mattered. I would have stood there, injured and exhausted, letting him empty shame into my hands so he could walk away lighter. Not now, he nodded slowly. You're right, I know. A faint, broken smile touched his mouth. You always hated saying that. I have been practicing. His smile disappeared. Natalie, after all this is over, could we, he struggled, not reconcile? I know you don't want that. But could we someday speak without lawyers? I considered lying gently, then decided against it. No, he closed his eyes. I don't say that to punish you, I said. I say it because every version of contact with you has cost me too much. I am done paying. He nodded again, but his mouth trembled. I don't know who I am without you. The old me would have softened, the new me felt sad and stayed still. That is your work, I said. Then I bought a bottle of water and returned to the room. The final agreement took 9 hours. By dusk, the terms were set. Ethan would repay traced trust funds connected to Serena's apartment and improper household transfers. He would not seek spousal support or claim rights against the Bellamy Trust. He would cooperate with record correction regarding the accident. He would issue a sworn statement acknowledging I did not cause the crash and that his prior statements were false. The forged medical authorization would remain outside the settlement, preserved for any ongoing review. My medical records would be mine, my name would be mine, my life would be mine. When we signed, my hand was steady. Natalie Bellamy, not Pierce, just Bellamy. Ethan noticed, his pen hovered. Then he signed too. Afterward, Judge Strauss stood. I wish both parties healing. It was the kind of thing people say when there is nothing else polite enough. Ethan approached me near the door. Rachel did not move away. He held out his hand, not to touch me, to give me something, my wedding ring, the Pierce heirloom. I thought you might want to decide what happens to it, he said. I looked at the ring. For years, it had felt heavy because I thought I was not strong enough to carry the family behind it. Now it looked small. No, I said, that belongs to your family. Let it remind them. His fingers closed around it. I walked out of the mediation room with Rachel at my side. In the elevator, she handed me a peppermint from the bowl. You stole that? I asked, liberated. I laughed. The sound came easier now outside. Rain fell lightly. For a second, I stood under the awning and listened to tires on wet pavement. Rain would always sound like that night, maybe forever, but I was not in the car anymore. Rachel's driver pulled up before I got in. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Ethan Pierce admits false statement about crash that injured former wife Natalie Bellamy. Former wife. The words looked strange, then beautiful. I took a screenshot, not for evidence, for myself. 6 months later, I stood at another podium. Smaller room, no chandeliers, no champagne tower, no Serena in silver silk, no Ethan in a tuxedo, no Marjorie watching from the edge of the crowd like a knife wrapped in pearls. This room belonged to the first Bellamy Mobility Grant recipients. The walls were painted warm blue, folding chairs filled the community center hall. A sign near the entrance read, "Access is not charity. IT is dignity." I had not written that line, a grant recipient had. I liked it better than anything the Pierce Foundation had paid a branding agency to invent. My cane rested against the podium. My wheelchair waited nearby because the day had been long and my body had limits. I had stopped treating those limits as moral failures. Dr. Hart sat in the front row. Rachel sat beside her, pretending not to cry. Maya Brooks, the podcast host, had joined the advisory board and was whispering something to a teenager who had just received funding for a custom sports chair. The Bellamy Mobility Fund was not large compared to the Pierce Foundation, not yet, but every dollar was clean, every grant listed, every decision reviewed by people who actually understood the lives behind the applications. After the investigations, the Pierce Foundation had been restructured under independent oversight. Several board members resigned permanently, restitution was ordered, Programs were restored, though under a new name. Ethan was barred from leadership in charitable organizations for a set period under the settlement with regulators. Marjorie lost influence faster than I expected and slower than she deserved. Serena cooperated enough to avoid the worst legal consequences, but her public image did not survive the recordings. She issued an apology that began with "I have been reflecting" and ended with comments turned off. I did not respond. Not everything requires your participation to be over. Ethan's sworn statement became public record. I did not cause the accident. He had been distracted by a phone call. He had allowed false impressions to continue. He had interfered with communication related to my recovery. The words were formal, not enough, still necessary. He also wrote me a letter. Rachel received it first. She says she will burn it ceremonially if you prefer, Priya told me over the phone. I asked her to send it not because I wanted him back, because curiosity is not surrender. The letter was 12 pages, too long, full of remorse, too late. He wrote about shame, about fear, about how his mother had shaped him, about Serena, about the accident, about waking each morning and reaching for a life that no longer existed. Near the end, he wrote, "I do not ask you to forgive me. I am beginning to understand that forgiveness is not something I am owed because I finally feel the weight of what I did." That line was the only one I believed fully. I folded the letter and put it in a file marked closed. Not forgiven, not forgotten, closed. Now, at the podium, I looked out at the room. A man in the second row sat beside his wife, their hands linked over a folder containing ramp approval documents. A college student leaned on forearm crutches near the coffee table. A grandmother cried quietly while her grandson filmed the stage on his phone. My voice shook when I began, not from fear, from the size of being alive in a room where no one needed me. Small. A year ago, I said, I stood up in a room where people expected me to stay quiet. A hush moved through the hall. I thought that moment was about proving something to the people who hurt me. I was wrong. It became about proving something to myself, not that I could walk. Some days I can, some days I can't. The proof was that I could choose, I could leave, I could tell the truth, I could stop funding my own humiliation, I could build something from the part of me they mistook for weakness. Heart wiped her eye. Rachel looked down at her lap. I continued, this fund exists because access should never depend on whether powerful people find your pain useful. It should never be traded for image, controlled by shame, or delayed because someone else prefers you helpless. The room blurred. I held the podium and let it. For everyone here who has been told you are too much, too expensive, too difficult, too slow, too changed, or too damaged. I want to say this clearly, needing help does not make you less free. The people who use your need to control you are the ones who should be ashamed. Applause began before I finished. This time, I accepted it sitting down. That mattered too. After the ceremony, I stayed until every recipient had their paperwork. Every photo was taken, every question answered. By the time I stepped outside, twilight had settled over the city. Rachel walked beside me. You overdid it, she said. You always say that. You always do. Balance. That is not balance. Growth. Then, she snorted. A black car waited at the curb, not mine. I knew before the window lowered. Ethan, he looked different, not better or worse, just less polished. His hair was longer, his face thinner, no driver, no assistant. No mother arranging the world around him. Rachel's expression turned lethal. It's okay, I said. Ethan stepped out slowly, hands visible, staying several feet away. I'm not here to upset you, he said. Then don't. A faint smile crossed his face and disappeared. I saw the announcement for the fund. I wanted to say congratulations, thank you. He looked at the community center behind me. Your father would have been proud. That almost hurt, not because he was wrong, because once he had known exactly where to press warmth. I did not let the warmth become invitation. Yes, I said, he would. Ethan nodded. Silence sat between us for the first time. He did not rush to fill it. That was new. Too late. But new. I'm leaving New York, he said. For a while. I said nothing. I'm working with someone, a therapist. Not that it fixes anything. No, but it may stop you from breaking whatever comes next. He accepted that with a small nod. Then he looked at my cane, my chair, my face. I used to think the worst moment of my life was when you stood up at the gala, he said. Now I think it was every moment before that when I gave you a reason to. I breathed in slowly. That was the apology he should have found months ago, maybe years. It still did not change the ending. I hope you become someone who understands that, I said. His eyes shone. Do you hate me? I considered the question. The old answer would have been complicated because I thought complicated meant deep. Now, the truth was simple. No, I said, I survived you. Hate would keep me closer than I want to be. He closed his eyes when he opened them. He nodded. Goodbye, Natalie. Goodbye, Ethan. He got back into the car this time, watching him. Leave did not feel like abandonment, it felt like weather passing. Rachel came to stand beside me. You okay? I thought about it. My leg hurt. My back ached. My name was still tangled with headlines I never asked for. Some nights, the crash returned in dreams. Some mornings, I woke reaching for a ring that was no longer there. But my bank accounts were mine, my medical records were mine, my home was quiet, my body was not a public debate, my future no longer required Ethan's permission. Yes, I said. I'm okay, Rachel smiled. That sounded real, it was. I turned toward my own car, then stopped across the street. The community center windows glowed. Inside, people were still talking, laughing, signing forms, comparing equipment vendors, exchanging numbers, lives being restored without a gala, dignity without performance. I folded my cane, sat in the wheelchair, and pushed myself forward before Rachel could reach for the handles. She caught herself and raised both hands. Sorry, I smiled. Thank you. For what? For remembering. She walked beside me, not behind. The sidewalk was uneven, and one wheel caught briefly in a crack. I adjusted, pushed again, and kept moving. Once, that would have embarrassed me. Now it was just a crack, just a wheel, just a woman going home under her own power. In whatever way her body allowed. That night at the curb, I looked back one last time at the lit windows. A year ago, Serena had laughed and said sitting was all I did. She had been wrong. I sat, I stood, I fell, I healed. I left, I built, and when the world tried to decide what my body meant, I took the meaning back, not with a miracle, with evidence, with boundaries, with a signature in my own name, with the courage to stop calling endurance love. The driver opened the door. Home, MS, Bellamy. I smiled at the sound of it. Yes, I said, home.